Lesson 36, and here we're talking about monopolistic competition. Now, just one quick word on here. A lot of people confuse this. Monopolistic competition is very similar to perfect competition and is not similar at all to a monopoly. So a monopoly is all the way out here, perfect competition is all the way out here, and monopolistic is about here. And what monopolistic means is a small degree of monopoly power, but it's really a very small degree. Hence it's called monopolistic. Now, the big thing about monopolistic competition is that there is product differentiation and there is also brand loyalty. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as perfect competition. So you have free entry and exit, firms move into the market, if there's supernormal profits, there's low barriers to entry, etc. And the other difference is the products are not all exactly the same. So, for example, they often use as an example of monopolistic competition is something like hairdressers or pharmacies on the high street. When all pharmacies had to sell their products at the same price all over the UK, and there couldn't be any difference, at that stage you used to have a lot of independent pharmacy products. I know recently Boots has come in and you are now allowed to sell your products at a cheaper price than you would do it at an independent retailer. Okay, so that is monopolistic competition, and it's really very, very similar. But I'm just going to very, very quickly draw the perfect competition diagram again, which we did in the previous lesson, just to get you going. Remember, this one was quite a hard one to draw, and we need to be able to draw this one to be able to think through the logic of monopolistic. So basically, perfect competition is, in the long run, you always end up in this situation where there is perfect competition, and you always make normal profit. How do we get to that point? So we drew a demand line here, and then if we draw three supply lines here, S1, S2 and S3, okay, and then we draw all the way across here. It's a bit easier to draw in the exam because I'm trying to look at the camera at the same time. You draw all those three things across there, and then we end up with three individual demand lines for each of those firms. AR1 equals MR1, AR2 equals MR2, equals, and AR3 is equal to MR3. And then this is the key point. When you draw your average cost curve, it must hit the bottom part there, right? Call that average total cost curve, probably a little bit big on there. Okay, draw all the way up. And then we put our marginal cost curve goes through the bottom of those lines on there. Okay, and in this position here, call that P1, Q1, you're making abnormal profits, therefore more firms enter the industry, freedom of entry and exit, low barriers to entry, Q2, P2, so we eventually end up at normal profits on there. And that is why you always end up with that diagram in perfect competition. Okay, in monopolistic competition, you always end up with exactly the same diagram, exactly the same situation in the sense that you also make a normal profit again. So how do you draw it, which is quite tricky? So you draw your D equals AR line, then you draw your MR line down here. And once again, we make that assumption about rational man. You always produce a profit maximization. So we then draw that there, and that is MC, the marginal cost curve. And then we draw MR equals MC, that's where you must produce. So you hit the axis there, okay? Now what we say is you must make a normal profit in the long run, because if you're making abnormal profits, as in regards this diagram here, there'll be more firms attracted to the industry. But luckily we don't need to draw loads of all these two diagrams beside each other to prove that point. But the same thing is happening. You're making abnormal profit, therefore more firms move into the industry. And when you draw it so the average total cost curve hits there, normal profit, and then goes through there and there. Okay, so that is a long run monopolistic competition. That's it, that's the whole theory. So you can draw that short run, you could be making abnormal profits. If you do, more firms will enter the industry, therefore the price will fall, and eventually you'll end up in this situation here. Now, of course, under this diagram here, you are productively inefficient, and also you are allocatively inefficient as well, because the price is greater than the marginal cost on there. Just if they ask that. I'm quite surprised this is on the syllabus really, because it's not really, it's a bit like perfect competition, but it's not, because of this idea of product differentiation and brand loyalty. Therefore you have a downward sloping demand curve, because if you do raise your price, then certain people will continue with your firm because they like your hair cutting or something like that. Whereas in perfect competition, if you can remember, all the products produced are exactly the same. Okay, so we've done perfect competition over here. We've now done monopolistic competition. And the next one is a big one, we do oligopolies. Thank you.